Well, for India, I mean, the shoe has got to fit the person who wears it, and that's the right shoe for India. Keep in mind, this is a country with a fragile currency, so you've got to put a strong position into the market. It's made, actually, having a really good central bank governor, which is what they've got with Raghuram Rajan, made Indian sovereign bonds one of the great plays last year.
In fact, you're very bullish on sovereign bonds.
Yeah, that's right. You know, you can look around the world and pick which sovereign bonds do you want to buy, look at the quality of the central banker, whether he's going to go for, you know, sound money, a firm currency and all of that. And Raghuram Rajan has. And the result of that is we've seen a really good bond performance in the Indian market, people moving out of shares and across into bonds. Moving out of shares because actually the domestic economy is still really pretty weak. I know they have a strong GDP number, but it seems disconnected.
Because they're tracking at around 7.5%, 7.6%.
Yeah, but industrial production struggles to get back up to 3 to 4%, and that's the one that people watch as a broad benchmark. So the shares in India aren't doing so well right now. The big industrial companies are struggling to get growth. They're mired with too much debt. But when you look at the market, you've got this wonderful central bank governor who's doing a pretty good job about keeping inflation under control and convincing foreign investors that Indian bonds are a safe bet. And in a world searching for yield, that works well.
And yield for sovereign bonds for the rupee is returning 8.1%, so
that's right.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Now, you talk about Raghuram Rajan doing the right thing and not weakening the currency through central bank policy, but take a look at the export picture. I mean, down again, 13%.
We don't have to worry about India. It's not a big exporter in anything. I mean, at least in the manufacturing space and commodity space, there are little things they do, automotive components, things like that, but it's not one of the world's big exporters. If you get growth in India, it's a domestic-driven story. You've still got to watch things like the monsoon cycle. So we've had 2 bad monsoon seasons in a row. If we get a better monsoon season, we get a recovery in that broad-based consumer market. And that does seem to be happening right now. If you track motorcycle sales and car sales, which is it's the fast data we get from India, right?
Sure.
These both have been heading back up for 3 or 4 months now. So we're getting a recovery in the urban consumer market, and we're starting to get a recovery in the rural, which is the big one, the rural consumer market.
Let's talk about what you're seeing in terms of domestic demand in China, because when you look at China, you say look at the old China and the new China.
That's right.
What exactly do you mean by that?
Okay, the old China is the China we all grew up with for the last 30 years. It was this massive manufacturing place, manufacturing for the domestic market, manufacturing for exporters. It changed the way the world manufacturing sector works. It is now the world's largest exporter of manufacturing goods. So that's part of the old China we know. Also part of the old China we know is this massive building of construction, both infrastructure and particularly housing, and that led to a decade-long surge in demand for coal and iron ore. Both those sectors are clearly struggling. They've been struggling for 2 years. Overcapacity, too many factories, too much construction equipment, too many loans out into these sectors, and we need to see consolidation go on, and that's the old China. It's clearest when you look at the GDP growth numbers for this area. Real GDP growth in the manufacturing and construction sectors is still about 5 to 6%. But the current growth, you know, the value growth in these areas is down under 1%. And this is a collapse in prices going on. So that's the old China. It's struggling. The new China is really about consumers, where the growth seems to be pretty good. Real growth in the consumer sector seems to be around 5 to 6%. Current price growth for consumers seems to be about 6 to 7%. And it's the services sector, which last year became the biggest sector of the economy. And of course, in there, you've got the whole e-commerce buzz.